We've all been there. You're in a meeting or maybe at a party, and there's that one person who barely says a word, but you can tell they're not missing a thing. We tend to label these folks as shy or maybe a little withdrawn. But what if that silence isn't weakness? What if it's actually a source of some serious, incredible power?
And this quote, it just nails it. You see, most conversation is a race, a battle, to be heard, to make your point. But the quiet observer, they're playing a completely different game. They're not just politely waiting for their turn to speak. They are absorbing everything, the entire room.
So that's the real question here, isn't it? Our society tends to celebrate the loudest person in the room. But what if the quiet person's approach gives them this huge strategic advantage that all the talkers are completely missing?
Well, psychology has a really fascinating take on this. It suggests that this silence isn't empty at all. No, it's packed with observation, deep processing, and a level of control that can honestly feel a little, well, scary to people who aren't used to it.
Okay, so let's be super clear. When we use a word like dangerous here, we're not talking about a physical threat or anything like that. We're talking about a formidable psychological toolkit. It's a kind of mastery over yourself and your observations that most people just don't have. It makes someone incredibly perceptive, centered, and, yeah, very difficult to manipulate.
So let's break this down. The first piece of this power is what we're calling the observer's edge. And it's all about the sheer volume of information that quiet people collect while everyone else is just busy talking.
Here's the key difference. Most people in a conversation, they're focused on the words, the what. But the quiet observer, they're digging so much deeper. They're trying to figure out the motivation, the subtext, the why behind the words.
And how do they do this? By tuning into all the little details the rest of us just filter out. That tiny hesitation before someone answers a question, that subtle shift in body language, the flicker of an eye. Their interpersonal sensitivity is so high that they can often spot dishonesty or a hidden agenda long before anyone else has a clue something is up.
But this goes way beyond just observing other people. That sharp analysis, they turn it inward on themselves too. It's this constant process of self-evaluation that really sharpens their judgment.
Now, there's actually a cool psychological term for this, metacognition. It's literally the ability to think about your own thinking. By constantly questioning their own assumptions and biases, they avoid that black and white worldview. It lets them see the full picture, with all its nuances and connections that other people who are kind of locked into their own viewpoints just completely miss.
Okay, so all of this internal observation then builds into their next power, the gravity of calm. And trust me, this isn't about being passive. It's about projecting an active, incredibly influential presence.
I want you to think about it like this. Most of us are like emotional chameleons, right? We walk into a room and we just reflect the anxiety or the excitement that's already there. But the quiet person with this emotional gravity, they're more like an anchor. They don't get swept up in the chaos. Instead, their centeredness creates this kind of field that subtly pulls everyone else towards their state of calm.
And get this, there's actual brain science behind this. Our brains have something called mirror neurons, which make us subconsciously mimic the emotions of the people around us. So when one person in a super stressful situation stays profoundly calm, their stable, low arousal state becomes this incredibly powerful, unspoken form of leadership.
And this right here is the critical difference. Under pressure, most people react. They respond. By detaching from that immediate emotional impulse, they can analyze the situation with cool logic. And that makes their actions deliberate, strategic, and often totally unpredictable to people who are just expecting an emotional outburst.
This internal stability leads us right into their next formidable trait, the fortress of self. And this is all about their deep, almost unshakable independence from what other people think.
I mean, let this sink in, because this is an absolute game changer. So much of our behavior is driven by this deep, almost primal need for other people to like us, to approve of us. But when someone is genuinely free from that need, all the normal levers of social pressure, they just don't work anymore. Just think about the difference for a second. If your self-worth is tied to what everyone else thinks, you're pretty easy to influence. But if your validation comes from inside, if you find comfort in your own mind and your own values, you become almost impossible to manipulate. Why? Because your sense of worth just isn't up for debate.
So let's put it all together. We have these master observers who are emotionally centered and internally validated. So what's the final piece of the puzzle? It's how they act, the power of silent action.
We all know people like this, right?
The ones who love to announce their grand plans. Well, psychology tells us that doing that actually gives them a premature little hit of dopamine, which can make them less motivated to do the actual hard work. The quiet person? They skip the announcement entirely. They focus on building the systems and the habits that guarantee results, not on the temporary buzz of just talking about them.
And what this creates is a state called automaticity. It's where discipline becomes so ingrained that it's basically an unconscious habit that runs on autopilot. Their actions are fueled by their internal systems, not by a need for likes or comments or external praise. They don't talk about what they're going to do. They just show up when it's done.
Okay, so let's bring this all home. If any of this is resonating with you, if you're the person who would rather listen than talk, who feels things really deeply but doesn't always show it on the surface,
then I really want you to remember this. You are not invisible. You're not antisocial or withdrawn. You are simply operating on a different frequency of awareness, processing the world on a level that, honestly, most people don't even know exists. Your silence isn't emptiness. It's a space that's full of observation, reflection, and immense personal power.
So embrace it. Don't let a noisy world ever convince you that you have to shout just to be heard. Your real power lies in your perception, your calm, and your quiet resolve. So stay focused, stay dangerous in your insight, and never ever stop observing.